Salve, 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 guys! Sejam muito bem-vindos a mais um vídeo. Hoje eu vou fazer uma entrevista com Andrew Campbell, mais conhecido como Zyori. Ele trabalha com esportes desde 2010. Ele é uma recém-contratação do Axie Infinity. Hoje ele é líder de programação de esportes e dos criadores de conteúdo do Axie Infinity. Nós vamos falar um pouco sobre V1, V2, o cenário como um todo de esportes, quais os planos futuros deles. Eu espero que vocês gostem do vídeo. Se inscrevam no canal, curtam o vídeo, comentem quem vocês querem ver sendo entrevistado. Eu vou tentar fazer uma entrevista por semana, tanto no cenário internacional como no cenário nacional, não só de Axie Infinity, mas de outros projetos, certo? Deixe no comentário quem você quer ver aqui sendo entrevistado, beleza? We are here today with Andrew, the Zyori Campbell, the biggest one on esports since 2010. How are you feeling, man?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Had a little bit of travel sickness coming back, so I had to take an extra day off, but I'm feeling refreshed. I'm feeling rejuvenated and excited to get back to work, man. A lot to do in the Axie world, especially on the esports side. So super stoked to be here, though, man. Excited to talk to you.
Thank you, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me since the beginning. You always answered me with time, and everything was amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk more about what you do inside Axie Infinity to people that don't know a lot of you?
Yeah, definitely. So I joined at kind of a unique time right before the big explosion. When I first came on board as the program lead for esports and content creators, part of my job scope was to figure out how do we unlock this next level of hyper growth. I think we had like 40,000, 50,000 daily active users when I came on board. And within like a month or two, before I could even really come up with a plan or a real policy to make that happen, the hyper growth took off and we broke 1 million daily active users, I think, before August of this year. So that completely changed my job scope from how do we create this growth explosion to how do we manage this growth explosion. And obviously that caused a whole bunch of issues like with the servers and stability because we weren't quite ready to scale that quickly. Truly nobody at Sky Mavis or Axie Infinity predicted that we'd be able to grow that quickly in that short of a time period. You know, everyone always jokes that like, hey, hyper growth, that's a good problem to have, which is true, but it is still a problem nonetheless, and a problem that needs a solution. So I kind of got thrown into the deep end. I was hired like in the quiet right before the storm when we thought it'd be nice and easy to onboard somebody new like myself. I had a bunch of ideas for esports programs and tournaments at the very beginning that had to be completely scrapped, reskinned, rescaled to account for the server instability and all that stuff. So it's been controlled chaos, but a lot of what I do is on the senior level. I work a lot with the content creators, and I'm really trying to build the programs and model out what our esports system should look like down the road. So I do a mixture of kind of short-term focus, like I'm the guy that's whitelisting people on the esports server and kind of managing those tournaments that are happening right now. But I'm also the guy that's working like big picture to try to map out, hey, what does an Axie Pro League look like? What could AxieCon look like? What are we going to do in 2022, 2023? I spend a lot of time focusing on big picture stuff like that.
Amazing, amazing. And what is the feeling about being part of everyone changing life, right? Because you are changing life of everyone that entering in Axie Infinity. For example, me, you changing everything in my life. I used to work in events, and now I'm working at home doing live streams, YouTube videos, and interviewing you. What is the feeling about being part of that?
It's a lot to unpack, and I think I didn't realize what I was stumbling on when I signed up for this job. My career in Dota was definitely on the decline, and COVID made that even more difficult because part of what my old company's plan was in 2020 and 2021 was to do more physical in-person events, like real life ticket sales, this kind of thing. Yeah. So my Dota career was already kind of in this point where I knew I needed a change, and I had been feeling that for a little while. Dota was very exciting because I got to travel, I got to learn a lot, I got to work as a play-by-play commentator, I got to work on some huge, major level $5 million prize pool kind of tournaments. And for a while, I thought that was a satisfying aspect of my career. But as more time went on, it definitely felt like that something was missing. And even those moments where I got the big win, I got invited to the event, or I went to the event and I nailed it, it was like a very short-term sort of feeling of satisfaction. Excuse me. It didn't last very long. And I think it's because I realized I was kind of chasing the wrong thing. You're doing these sponsor reads for sponsors you don't really agree with. Most of the sponsors I sold in my, 8 years of doing Dota work were betting, gambling sponsors, some of them a little bit more shady than others. At the end of the day, that doesn't really feel good. It's sort of like doing what you have to do to get the money to be able to keep your company afloat and pay your employees. So there is a degree of satisfaction, but on a high level, there wasn't really that much soul food in it. And I really do love talking and doing commentary and podcasting. So being able to get paid to do that helped keep me in it for longer than I think maybe I was truly enjoying it. So when the Axie guys approached me, I was really in a position to look for something new and want to do something else. But I didn't quite realize the gravity of what I was getting myself into. And I've found over the last couple of months that has really added a huge amount of soul food, or just like spiritual value to my daily work. Most other developers, the whole thing is structured with developer to player sales, which means working for the developer, our high level goal is just to min max players, right? How do we get the most money out of our players' pockets and into our pockets? And how do we figure out how to do, like, doing that? I think can bring up interesting ethical questions at a certain point. So knowing that our economy is much more player driven and player owned, our goal isn't really to min max our players the same way. Our goal is to enable our players to kind of min max each other within this system that we've created. And that's been pretty mind blowing. Some of my real life friends have started a scholarship that I've contributed Axies to, and it's sort of branded around my Mystic. And just seeing that energy and how much the people care about it, and the lack of entitlement, and how blessed they feel just to be a part of this thing because it makes such a difference in their lives. I don't know what the right word is to encapsulate that feeling, but it's very powerful. It's very motivational. And I wake up basically every day excited to work and continue progressing the Axie universe. And I think that's kind of a rare thing. All things equal, I work 7 days a week, maybe not 8 hours every day, but 7 days a week, I wire in, talk to people, work on stuff, and continue the development. And ultimately, that's because it gives me a sense of purpose.
Amazing. The same feeling here. Even that I'm not part of the SkyMaves team, I'm working just to help people, is amazing. I love that. I love that the word, that NFT word. And I'm so excited about lands. I can't wait to play my land, my
Me too,
little
man.
florist land.
I know it's so hard with the roadmap. Like, I know everybody, like, there's been some dialogue on Twitter recently talking about like ETAs and transparency and all this stuff. And it's such a complicated dialogue. And I think sometimes people really need to remember that we're doing stuff that hasn't been done before. And that is really, really hard. And every time we take one step forward, we often realize, oh, wow, this didn't end up the way we thought it would. Now we got to build this thing. Oh, this thing that we thought would take 1 week, it actually ended up taking 3 weeks. We simply just don't know when stuff is going to be done. And I want land gameplay as much as the next guy, but I also want it to be good. And I feel it's appropriate to not sacrifice quality just for arbitrary deadlines.
For sure. Well, I completely agree with that. And what do you think about the esports and lands will be? You have plans for that, or you're not starting to think about that yet?
It's a good question. I guess I've thought about it on a very high level, but I think the scope of LAN gameplay is still shifting a little bit. In the last development update, Jiho posted a little bit of insight to that. How, hey, here's 3 different aspects of LAN gameplay we could focus on. This is kind of our priority list. I think with the SDK, like the map editor, that will open up some potential for esports-esque. I mean, it's wild to think that Dota was born on the Warcraft 3 map editor. And if we get this map editor right, what that could mean for like Axie land gameplay and that future world of development. But I think that's still pretty far away. So I think we're open-minded to integrations. I've had some outreach from folks that own like really legit plots of like Genesis land or like, river or the main road along Mystic plots and stuff. And they've suggested like, well, how's advertising going to work? Like, could we potentially leverage this land for like esports advertising to like get people, excited and tuned into different events? And I think that like heads in the right place. I don't know exactly what the limitations will be there and if that'll be possible, but we're already getting inbound from people like trying to find creative ways to leverage their land potentially. So I guess we'll see. We'll see. We're open to all sorts of crazy ideas. So it becomes a matter of, what's possible and what makes sense.
Damn, you just gave me more curiosity than I had before. So the esports in V1 in V2. Let's talk about that since the land is too early. The V1 and V2, they gonna work together or gonna V2 is gonna overthink the V1. You can talk about that. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, no, this is a really good question, and the answer is going to be a little bit frustrating, perhaps, because it's another one where it's evolving and things are changing a little bit. Originally, the plan was, as you can guess by the names, V1, V2, V2 just replaces V1. But I think that model came about like before I was hired, when we were really struggling to hit that hyper growth. And there is a certain point where one has to wonder, hey, this battle mode that we built is pretty good, but our growth isn't really anything that spectacular. 50,000 daily active users, it's not bad, but it's not amazing. It's not headline worthy. So I think it's a fair dialogue internally to say, well, maybe we need a better version of the game that appeals to a more mass audience. And that was sort of the logic behind version 2 coming along and being the new battle mode of Axie. But during the time that we were developing version 2, we hit that hyper growth, and now we're at something like 2.5 million weekly active users. So I think some of the proof is in the pudding that version 1 is definitely not bad. And a lot of the growth was not really related or unrelated to version 1 being good or bad. Version 1 just is. I think it's actually a pretty good little battle game. And now that we're seeing this giant growth and giant adoption, we're getting way more feedback and eyeballs on version 1 than we ever thought we would. So there's going to be a really big balance patch coming to version 1 in between the next two, after this season and before the next season starts. A lot of changes that people have been asking for, and a lot of card balances as well. So I think we're at a point now where it makes sense to have version 1 and version 2 sort of exist in tandem. What this looks like for esports is a really, really good question. And I think part of being like a tech startup like this, when things move really quickly, we have to be a little bit agile, and you have to be okay to say, hey, we had this plan. While we were executing the plan, a bunch of stuff changed. So now we kind of need to come up with a new plan. And that's exactly what we're doing. So as of right now, I think it's more likely that both of them exist in parallel with each other, and they'll just be a different style of game, so to speak. I can't leak exactly the key differences, but I can say that version 2 is definitely a bit more of a deck building type vibe. And I think long term, we've talked a lot internally about finding more ways to like refactor Axies or like re-roll that one ability where you have 3 of the ones that you want, but that 4th one is no good, so that the game becomes a little more malleable for deck building and customization without the kind of paywall of like, well, I'm just going to keep breeding Axies until I get lucky and get the one that I want. Ultimately, we're going to want a way to release Axies to the wild, as they say, get some kind of a resource, then use that resource to improve your Axies that you have that you really like or that are really good already, but could be a little bit better. So I think version 2 is like a step in the right direction to achieve that goal, but it's certainly not the end all be all. But we'll see, man. I mean, I think a lot of my answers for this future stuff will be, we got to see. Our whole model is based on putting something out there, collecting data, and then iterating and making decisions based on the data we've collected. So it really does depend. And it also depends on the audience. Like, will people like version 2? There may be a world where there's like a huge, 90% of the audience says, yep, this one's way better. We don't really want to play this one, or vice versa. And we'll definitely take that into account in our development strategy. So we got to see how you guys are going to like it first before I can say for sure.
Amazing, amazing. We get some spoiler, a little spoilers. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying to get something here. Be calm, be calm. So, a lot of people asking me about esports and being a part of a team or a clan to
Mhm.
work together and play together. Is there any plan to V1? Let's start with V1
Mhm.
to work together in some level to battle together.
Do you mean like a 2v2 kind of game mode?
Yeah, 2v2, a team, a big team.
I don't think anytime soon. I think the kind of team dynamic that we've talked about is what some of the tournaments have experimented with already, where it's like what I call StarCraft team battles, where it's still 1v1, but you have 5 members of each team, and then you kind of go town until there's no players left. So player 1 on each side battle, whoever loses is eliminated, another player comes in, and you go down that way. So I think we're toying around with ideas in terms of the competitive scene on how to do some team focused stuff, because we have gotten some inbound from existing esports teams, from the traditional gaming space that are sort of interested in Axie, and they want to know about the future. And we want to find ways to make it valuable for teams to enter the space, so it's not just a bunch of single players. But not anytime soon. No, I think that would take some substantial game design rework to figure out like a 2v2 battle mode that isn't totally busted and broken. So potentially, I mean, in terms of the Axie ecosystem, we don't see it as like, hey, this battle mode is all there is. This is Axie. Axie is a universe, and Battles version 1, Battles version 2, these are just different things that you can use your Axies for, right? Different forms of utility. So that's when we say like building up instead of building out. That's kind of what we mean, where instead of doing a lot to the Axies, we want to keep Axies somewhat immutable in terms of the formula, and then give them more things to interact with and more ways to use your Axies in different applications. So, I mean, that sounds like a perfect SDK project to me. Somebody creates the 2v2 or the 3v3 Axie mode. I think that's the kind of stuff that we're excited to be able to open up to the community once our tools are done. But yeah, I mean, Axie's incomplete right now, right? It is truly an alpha, and Battles version 1 is kind of all we got. It is the tip of the iceberg in terms of what the Axie universe is going to be.
We made the Koi GG championship, right? It was amazing. What do you think it needs to be done there to get more people enjoying the
So
sports?
we mentioned it. Now, we talked about it at the beginning a little bit, but the scaling issues from the hyper growth really threw a wrench in our roadmap. There's what's called a smart up strategy, and this is something a lot of tech startups do. You build an MVP, a minimum viable product. You do it as quickly as you can, and you use code that isn't going to scale forever, but it's going to get you through this starting point to get a proof of concept. Then you get the money from the investors. Then you use that money to hire more developers, and then you start refactoring that code so it can scale, right? So it can reach an enterprise level. This is totally normal. It's like one of the best ways to build technology in like the most efficient way possible. But part of that comes with forecasting and trying to accurately predict, well, what's our user demand going to be? Are we going to 100x in 3 months? If so, then, we need to have the proper infrastructure in place to be able to do that. This gets kind of hard to predict. And that happened to us when the servers were broken for that 3-week period or whatever it was a couple months ago. That is exactly what happened. We just hadn't refactored the code yet because we didn't think we would have to. So to fix that, we had to turn off every feature that wasn't mission critical, everything that wasn't adventure or arena mode, basically. And you remember, like, you didn't see the pop-up at the end of the screen anymore with how much SLP or MMR you got. No more challenges, no more battle log, these sorts of things. And it might sound silly, like, well, how much bandwidth could the battle log really take up? All the data's there anyway. You're just letting us look at it. But in aggregate, it all adds up. and it all starts to compound once you hit that, like, server at 99%, the blinking warnings, like shut down imminent, that kind of thing. We never intended to turn off the challenge server. We never intended to make a private esports server, but it was the best solution that I could come up with given the parameters. A month or a month and a half after being hired, I had all these esports plans, and I got told, yeah, we're not going to have any kind of esports available on the main server for the next 3 to 4 months. And I said, well, I don't think we can do that. I've just spent a month hyping up how awesome esports is going to be for the rest of the year, and getting people excited and telling them like we're full steam ahead. We can't do that. This is like, it's like a rug for the people that I've talked to and gotten really excited. So I was able to push for some development allocation to set up this private server, and that's why it has the whitelisting block, because it's not really designed to scale. If we just open it up for everybody to use, it'll break, just like the servers broke, whatever it was, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So it was a way for me to at least set up some tournaments, let viewers watch some esports tournaments, and have something rather than nothing. So while the esports server has served a very good purpose, it's worked very well for its specific purpose. It's really a band-aid solution, right? We don't want esports to be behind a whitelist. We don't want esports to be this thing that only a certain amount of players can access. I see the demand for big opens, right? There's a lot of players that are like, all these tournaments are invitationals. I want to play. How come I can't ever register? And I feel for them. But it's just, there's nothing I can do about it in the short term. We will absolutely have big opens in the future. We will absolutely have some sort of Axie Pro League that is regional qualifiers and gives everyone a chance to some degree. That's definitely part of our roadmap, but you just got to bear with us while we scale things. We're taking baby steps. I often say to people now, if Axie's in alpha, Axie Esports is in like pre-alpha. We're in like the earliest like Stone Age stages of it. So the future is really bright, and the server upgrades are going really well. Some of them are ahead of schedule, and I think we're going to have like regular challenges back on the main server, hopefully before the end of the year. And then we're really going to see this explosion of esports where all these folks that are sending me requests to run community events, they can just do it, right? They don't need my permission. They can just do it. And that, I think, is like one of the key things that we're missing right now. Understandably so, but we're still missing it.
Yeah, baby steps. Always a baby steps, right? What do you think about World Championships? You think it's going to be something in X Infinity?
I think so. You're not the first person to ask me about that. And while it's not, how to say this properly, I see that as sort of supplementary to the main thing. Like I think like in the Axie Pro League, I don't know if that's actually what it'll be called, but that's the name I've been using so much that it's starting to stick. I like the idea of that being broken down somewhat regionally, not by country, but kind of like by time zone. Maybe you've got the Americas, you got Europe and Africa, you got Asia, maybe China's its own region or something. You want to break it apart a little bit so that there's some guaranteed global representation, but ultimately you want the Axie Pro League to be about just the best players competing against the best players, right? Not necessarily about nationality or forcing a certain representation at the highest level. But once you have that Axie Pro League and we have this backbone for our whole esports system, that's a combination of first party, like Sky Mavis run organized tournaments, then also third party, like folks like yourself running tournaments kind of with our support. I think trying to do some Olympic style country versus country, big tournament that we support financially and hype up, that sounds awesome to me. I mean, I see no reason why that couldn't work and why that wouldn't be amazing. And we already see like a good amount of country pride within the Axie space because we're so global. It is one thing that people kind of rally behind, right? A lot of scholarships tend to be focused around one culture, one language, or one country. And I think tapping into that energy could be huge. So no specific plans yet. I don't think we want to come out of the gate with that. Like, I think we want to try to build out the Axie Pro League first. But outside of that, I think it's one of the better ideas I have on the drawing board. That's for sure. The Pro League will have coverage in multiple languages, right? We want it to have global coverage. So it's going to be more than just the pro players. I think we want the Pro League to be a show. It'll certainly be English first, but I think we want to use that. There's a lot of like free marketing real estate that comes along with the Axie Pro League. In a lot of other traditional esports, you have to fill that real estate with paying sponsors. That's like their whole thing, right? Like this league only exists because people are paying for it, and that spot is reserved for the Coca-Cola logo because they're giving us $10 million. In case of Axie, we've got like $3.4 billion in the Axie treasury for things just like this. So if we're paying for it, we have all this extra real estate. To me, we should be using that to create content, to highlight different scholarships, highlight different communities, different content creators, artists. And we're definitely going to need commentators in other languages. You know, we want Portuguese fans and Brazilian fans to be able to follow the action and understand it, even if it's not Brazilian or Portuguese players participating. So even if you're not good enough to be one of the competitors, you might be good enough to be one of the commentators. Just saying.
Oh, wow.
Just saying.
Wow. You want spoiler, guys? We have. And let's talk about a little of security, right? Because I'm getting scared about the scammers and the phishing that they are using. What is your tips?
So first of all, I just want to throw out there that this is a high priority for us. It wasn't originally when Axie was smaller, but now with this giant growth spurt, some giant portion of our players are completely new to crypto, and a striking percentage are just new to finance in general. And when I say finance, I'm talking about people that have never had a bank account. They live in an economy where they make cash, they spend cash, and that's it. So this whole world of digitized finance is very new to them, very scary. And it's understandable that they don't necessarily have the tools to navigate the field of landmines that is the crypto internet space. Because you're right, it's a shame how many phishing scams exist out there. We've now employed multiple third-party contractors that specialize in this kind of stuff, that have accelerated automated takedowns for copycat domains, copycat apps and stuff, like the one that was in the Google Play Store for a while. And it's a real battle because every platform is different and has different rules for takedown and different things like that. You've probably seen the scam channel on Twitch. It's Axie Infinity with a bunch of numbers. It gets taken down, it gets view botted back up, and a new one pops up like, you know, every 10 minutes. I get an email about that probably once a day. And a call out here, Twitch has basically been ignoring us. They gave us partner status. They gave us an account manager. I've sent her about 8 emails regarding this. She's responded to 1, and no action has been taken. We're pushing externally to try to get Twitch to care, but it just seems like they don't. And fundamentally, like, we can't get, you know, I can't ban a channel on Twitch. Twitch has to ban those channels. Same with Discord, right? All we can do on Discord is ban scammers and bad actors from our servers, but we can't ban them from Discord at large. I get a lot of messages from people saying, hey, this imposter Zyori tried to scam me. You got to do something about this. I don't know what you want me to do. I don't work for Discord. I have no ability to ban accounts from Discord. And, you know, that's it. So it's a really challenging thing for us to deal with. And there are certain locations, right, that are more resistant to server takedown or domain takedowns. Russia is one of them that's notoriously challenging to get fraudulent sites taken down. So we are working on it. We have a full-time employee whose job it is to try and counter some of this and create educational tools to try to make sure people are more educated about what's happening here. But on a basic level, I think the seed phrase or your secret recovery phrase, that's the thing we need to focus most of the education on. There's a lot of other things around that, but that is the thing that I see the most from my inbound. You know, I get, unfortunately, a lot of emails of people pretending that I'm the support desk, and I don't respond to most of them because there's nothing I can really do, but I can read the dialogue and see some of the confusion. And a lot of them ask if I can just like reset their seed phrase, sort of like it's a password. I get people that say stuff like, hey, my Axies got stolen, and I know that you have some way to move them around. You just don't want to do it. And it's like, no, that's not how blockchain works. If we could do that, then there would be no point of having blockchain as the back end to do this, right? That immutability is part of the value proposition and security of this decentralized gaming future that we're building. So I think that's like the starting point at the very least, is understanding that seed phrase is It is the key to everything. It is the skeleton key to all of your stuff. And it doesn't, yes, get a Trezor, right? Get one of these guys, get one of these physical hardware wallets, but that seed phrase can still be compromised, right? And if you if you give that seed phrase to somebody, they can just load that onto another hardware wallet and then steal all of your stuff. So while the hardware wallets do make a big difference, they add a huge layer of security. It still ultimately comes down to not putting that, connecting that to a phishing service and not getting caught by a scam, and making sure that your seed phrase is secured. And by secured, I mean both safety, like securely, like you're not sharing it with anyone, but also redundancies, backups. What happens if your house burns down? Now, you might say to yourself, well, that's never going to happen. Or what are the chances my house burns down? I agree, very low. Let's say it's a 0.1% chance. But if your house burns down, you lost all your physical stuff, right? Your life's already in a really bad spot. You don't want to double down by also losing all of your digital stuff that was worth even more than your house. If you have that seed phrase on a piece of paper and it's just sitting in your bedroom right now, like in a drawer with your socks or something, it's gone if that place catches on fire. What happens if somebody realizes that you in real life is this person online and they go, that guy's got a hardware wallet. He's probably got a backup somewhere. What if they break into your house? If that's not in a safe or in some hidden location or somewhere that they can't find it, they can just take that piece of paper, run off, and then they can load that onto a new device and steal all of your stuff. So you need to think about all of these contingencies. And in blockchain, like we're shifting in this from this world of the centralized banking world where if somebody steals my credit card, I can just call and say, hey, can you guys undo that? That wasn't me. And they can. To the world of crypto where it's, ultimate security, ultimate responsibility. It's on you to secure it. If that's all of your Axie assets, if that's all of your Scholar accounts, you want to be ultra paranoid about keeping that stuff secure, and you want to think about those fringe scenarios that could happen. I admit unlikely, but as all this stuff gets bigger, as all of us get more popular, security matters more and more, both on a real life physical level and the online digital level.
Andrew, I want to thank you for the interview. It's amazing. Thank you for your time. And thank you for all the spoilers. I want to thank you my sponsor, Trezor Brasil, the Brazil Electronics. Buy Trezor with the code Fecoxa. You're gonna earn 10% off and discount. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you a lot. You want to send a message to the multi-accounters?
Yes, for the multi-accounters out there. You're not as sneaky as you think. We are watching, we are lurking, and you will be caught and you will be banned. Do not mess around with this stuff. Just because you're doing it now and you haven't been caught yet does not mean you won't be caught in the future. We take multi-accounting very, very seriously. We take SLP abuse very seriously. These are the things that ruin the economy for the genuine players that are following the rules. And it is very, very high priority for us. If you're abusing the system, look out, because Jiho's coming and he is fierce.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for your time. You want to send a message to Brazil?
What is it? Vamos, Brazil? Is that it?
Vamos. Brazil. Vamos. Thank you, man. Thank you for your time.